The raven came at dusk with river mud dried hard upon its claws and a strip of black silk knotted about its leg. The bird had flown far and fast. Even before Grand Maester Kraylan broke the seal, the chamber seemed to understand that some long balance had shifted in the world beyond the western sea cliffs. Men who had been speaking softly did not speak at all. The surf below the rock boomed through the stone like a giant heart. Tywin Lannister stood at the war table with both hands braced upon the carved lip. Gold rings gleamed on his fingers. The lamplight found the lion worked in red enamel upon his breast, and kindled it until it looked half alive. He did not reach for the letter. He waited for Kraylan to read, as if the news itself must cross the floor to him and kneel. "Prince Rhaegar is dead," the maester said. There was a sound in the room, though no one had meant to make one. Sir Adam Marbrand let out a breath. A lordling near the back crossed himself unconsciously. Kevan Lannister's fingers tightened upon the hilt at his side. Kraylan went on, his voice careful with every word. The royal host was broken upon the Trident. Lord Robert Baratheon slew the prince in single combat. The usurper was wounded in the fighting, but not slain. Sir Barristan Selmy was taken alive. Lord John Connington was not present. The king's remaining strength is falling back toward King's Landing. Still, Tywin said nothing. He had been silent so long that the younger men had begun to confuse silence for absence. It was one of the mistakes he permitted most willingly. In stillness, he ruled the room more completely than any noisy man ever could. The lords gathered there could hear themselves thinking against his quiet, and it made them uneasy. Outside the windows, evening was turning the sea from steel to ink. One by one, the chamber candles guttered as a servant moved around the edges and pinched their wicks to a brighter life. Red wax bled down a silver candlestick. In the doorway, unnoticed by all but one pair of mismatched eyes, Cersei Lannister stood with one hand against the stone, her pale hair burnished copper in the low light. Tyrion beside her was small enough to be taken for a fold in her skirts until he moved. He had listened too. Children did in castles. That was how they learned what sort of world they had been born into. Tywin lifted his head at last. "How long ago?" "8 days, perhaps 9, said Kraylan. "The river roads are treacherous." "Rhaegar dead," Kevan said. The words were slow, not because he doubted them, but because he was already measuring all that would follow. "Then Aerys is done." "Aerys was done when he took Jaime from me," Tywin replied. "The realm has merely begun to notice." A murmur went through the men at that, quickly smothered. None present had forgotten the slight. The king had not only refused the match Tywin desired between Cersei and the prince, he had made the insult answer itself by naming Jaime to the Kingsguard and wrapping the heir to Casterly Rock in white vows. That had been the beginning of a wound that had never closed. Sir Adam leaned over the map. "If the prince is dead and Robert wounded, the city may be taken before the moon turns. If we march at once..." "At once?" Tywin's eyes moved to him, and all the eagerness went out of the younger man like water from a cut wineskin. Kevan said, "If we march, we must know for whom." Tywin straightened. The motion was not hurried, but the room seemed to gather around it. "For House Lannister." He looked down upon the painted board. Rivers picked out in blue enamel, the gold line of the road east, the tiny crimson lion of his own force still resting in the west where it had rested all through a rebellion he had judged unripe. Some men called that caution. Some called it cowardice behind closed doors. Tywin had not troubled to hear which. Time settled all questions in its own tongue. The victor named Prudence, and the dead named Folly. "The king is mad," he said. "The prince who might have mended what the father broke lies in the river mud. Baratheon bleeds. The Tullys and Starks have spent themselves to win him a crown they cannot wear. The Reach sits before Storm's End. Dorne has given its blood and received grief. There is no king yet, only men reaching for one. We shall determine whether those hands close." He began to place gold lions upon the board with measured fingers. One at the Gold Road, one at Deep Den, one at the crossings east. Each click on the wood felt like a sentence pronounced. We march with 12,000. Light horse in the van. No songs, no boasting, no proclamations. We come as loyal subjects answering the king's need until the city gates decide otherwise. And if the gates open, Kevan asked, then we enter. And if Robert's men reach them first? Tywin's mouth scarcely changed at all. It did not need to. Men had learned to hear cold in him without seeing it. Then we enter differently. No one asked what differently meant. A silence like old iron took hold of the chamber. The men there were not fools. They knew what a great city looked like when one army took it from another. They knew what bargains were struck with corpses and smoke. From the doorway came a shift of cloth. Tywin turned. Cersei had stepped forward far enough for the light to catch her face. At 17, she had already learned the force of beauty and the value of concealment. It was plain in the way she lifted her chin, as if she expected every eye to earn the privilege of looking at her. Tyrion remained half behind her, a shadow with one green eye and one black set keenly in a clever, malformed face. "You heard," Tywin said. Cersei did not bow. All of the West heard, I think. He regarded her for a moment. In her face there were times when he saw Joanna so sharply it seemed an old cruelty of the gods. Not in softness. Joanna had not been soft. In composure, perhaps, and in the confidence that the world would make room if she chose to enter it. In Cersei, that confidence had hardened already into hunger. Tywin did not mistake one for the other. "Go to your chambers," he said. Her mouth tightened. "If a crown is being chosen, I should like to know whose head you mean it for." A few of the men dropped their eyes. Kevan closed his and opened them again. "For the moment," Tywin said. "I mean it for no one. Go." She held his gaze one heartbeat longer than obedience required, then turned. Tyrion lingered. That was his way. Where Cersei confronted, he observed. Tywin had looked on that bent, mismade body with disappointment so deep it had become habit, yet the boy's mind was quicker perhaps than was comfortable in a son one could not love. Tyrion's gaze flicked once to the map, once to Tywin, once to the raven shelf above the hearth. "You will go as well," Tywin told him. Tyrion gave the small, careful bow that always looked half mocking even when it was not, and followed his sister out. When the door had shut, Kevan said quietly, "If the city opens and Jaime is within." "Jaime is within," Tywin said. "Whether I am in time for him is another matter." That was as close as he came to feeling in the presence of other men. It was enough to make the chamber colder. Orders were given then, swiftly and in detail. Pack trains counted, smiths roused, outriders summoned, dispatches drafted to bannermen who had remained home awaiting their lord's pleasure. Casterly Rock woke beneath them like a beast shaking sleep from its limbs. Horns sounded in lower yards. Stable boys ran with bridles. In the sea caves, the night tide advanced under the cliffs, patient as history. Before the council broke, Kevan touched Tywin's sleeve. "Brother," Tywin paused. "You kept the West from this war for good reason. You know I have trusted that. But if you mean to take the city for Robert, he will owe you. If you mean to take it against him, he will never forgive you." We walked toward a knife edge. "Now," Tywin turned his head slightly. "No, Kevan. Others walk toward it. I intend to arrive standing where it falls." He left the chamber without another word. In the corridor beyond, the torches burned with a sea-wine shiver. For an instant he saw, framed at the far end of the passage, the shape of Joanna as she had once turned from him with a candle in hand and laughter not yet spent. But it was only memory, and memory had no place in the march to come. He went to arm for the road. Before dawn, the rock gave him up. The Lannister host moved east like a scarlet vein let loose across the land. The first days were all heat and dust. Late summer still clung to the Westerlands in long bright hours, but the war had altered even the weather of men's minds. They rode through villages where shutters were barred against them, though no enemy banners flew. At wells, women turned away with their buckets, and children were snatched indoors. The gold cloaks of grain fields had been cut too early or burned where they stood. Ox carts leaned broken in ditches. Once they passed a roadside sept, blackened from roof to floor, its 7 crystal faces cracked and running with soot. Tywin saw everything. He did not ask after it. He rode beneath the lion banner in armor plain by his standards, a red cloak over steel, helm carried rather than worn so that he might speak quickly when he chose. The years had set their mark about his eyes and mouth, but the march did not seem to touch him as it touched other men. He sat the saddle as if command itself spared him ordinary burdens. Men who saw him from the roadside would have said that House Lannister rode with certainty toward the city. Only those nearest understood that certainty and intention were not the same thing. Kevan did. On the 4th day, as clouds gathered low and gray above the road east of Deep Den, he drew his horse alongside his brothers. Behind them, the long column creaked and clanked and cursed under its breath. Baggage mules, wagons of grain, armored riders, companies of spearmen in crimson cloaks, mounted scouts moving like thrown splinters ahead and to either side. Ahead lay the Crownlands and the Blackwater crossings. Beyond that, the city. Our outriders took 2 men in Targaryen colors last night, Kevan said. What was left of the colors, rather. Crownland men. They said Rosby has shut its gates and Stokeworth waits upon events. The city has barred entry to all but the king's own. Pycelle will speak for us, Tywin said. If he can, if he dares. The city may open to the name Lannister, but not to me. Tywin turned his gaze upon the road, upon the bent backs of a file of refugees, being driven off into the ditch by his van. A woman stumbled with a child on her hip. The child did not cry. Fear had taught it a quicker lesson than comfort. The name is enough, he said. Kevan was silent a moment. You are not so well loved in King's Landing as once you were. I have never mistaken obedience for love. That does not answer. Tywin's horse tossed its mane and stamped as thunder rolled far off beyond the eastern hills. When the king named Jaime to his white cloaks, he told the court I was too proud. When he called me a merchant counting coppers, he told the court I was too low. When he laughed at my daughter, he told the court I was too ambitious. Men repeat a king's contempt until they think it their own. Yet when the realm required roads, laws, peace, coin, and justice, whose hand gave them those things? Mine. They remember insult when danger is far away. When danger is at the gate, they remember order. No. Kevan accepted that because there was sense in it, but he did not look eased. He rarely did when Tywin spoke of Jaime or Cersei. Those names came from someplace in Tywin that no other subject touched, less a wound than an account left open too long, gathering interest. In the rear of the column rode Sir Gregor Clegane, mountain large even from a distance, his lance upright like a stripped pine. Beside him somewhere, no doubt, rode Sir Amory Lorch with his weasel eyes and quick hands. Tywin had brought them because power required instruments as much as it required banners. Yet Kevan knew too well what sort of men they were. He knew also that Tywin knew. That was its own discomfort. That evening the rain came down in a sudden gray sheet that turned the road to churned clay and plastered men's cloaks to their backs. Camp was made beneath a ring of old ash trees. Tywin took his supper under a red pavilion open on one side to the wet dark. He ate little, cold capon, black bread, watered wine. Reports came and were dismissed. A scout returned to say the river crossing ahead was swollen, and a band of mounted men had been seen ranging the woods north of the road. Another reported that smoke lay over villages nearer the Blackwater, and no lord's men kept order there. Broken men? Kevan asked. Or hungry men, said Sir Adam. Tywin folded a piece of bread and set it down. Hunger makes men bold until steel reminds them what they are. When the others had gone, Kevan remained. Rain drummed on the pavilion canvas. The lamplight made the wine in Tywin's cup look thicker than it was. Do you mean to send terms to Robert if he takes the city before us? Kevan asked. Tywin considered. If Robert takes the city before us, he will need the West more than ever. The river lords and Northmen have bled for him, but blood does not mint coin. Crowns are dear. Thrones more so. He will marry, and the marriage will matter. He will want peace, bought swiftly. Nay. And if he does not want us? Tywin's eyes rested on him. patient and severe. Then he will learn the price of pretending the West does not exist. Kevan might have smiled if the subject had been smaller. You speak as if all roads must bend back to you. All roads bend back to power, Tywin said. The man who mistakes himself for the road is a fool. I am not that man. No. Yet, when he lay down beneath the pavilion roof, it was not power that came first to him, but Jaime at 16, in white armor bright as judgment, kneeling before the Iron Throne, while Aerys smiled like a wound in a man's face. He had not dreamed of that day in years. Perhaps he did not dream now either, but merely remember with the clarity that comes when a reckoning draws near. Before dawn, the camp was moving again. The sky had been scrubbed pale by rain. Mist hung over the low ground where the road dipped toward a small timber bridge, over a tributary feeding the Blackwater. The banks there were thick with alder and willow. The water moved fast and brown beneath the planks. Wagons slowed at the crossing. Men swore. Horses snorted steam. Tywin reined in and studied the tree line. "What is it?" Kevan asked. "Too quiet." A moment later, a mule screamed. The first bolt took the beast in the neck. The second struck a driver through the cheek. Then men came boiling from the mist on both banks, ragged and hard-eyed, some in rusted mail, some in boiled leather, some in little more than torn tunics belted with rope. There were remnants of colors among them, faded stag yellow, a trout gone brown with filth, the red dragon three-headed and half burned away. Broken men then, but broken from more than one army. War had mixed them into something bastard and savage. "Horns!" Kevan bellowed. "Shields up!" The sound rolled up and down the column, too slow for the vanguard and too late for the wagons already on the bridge. An ox lurched, hit again, dragging a cart crosswise so the whole crossing jammed at once. Arrows hissed from the trees. A horse reared and toppled backward, crushing its rider's leg. Men shouted conflicting orders in 3 different voices before Tywin's cut across them all. "Forward through! Horse to the banks! Kill them!" He did not shout often, and when he did, men moved. Tywin drove his horse down the slope toward the right bank, cloak whipping behind him, 3 guards at his shoulder. It was not rashness. He had seen in a heartbeat that the attack was not a battle, but a strike at confusion. If the line held its fear, fear would grow, and if fear grew, 12,000 men became a routed rumor before noon. The attackers had chosen a crossing, a crowd, a morning fog. Smart enough, but smart was not enough against discipline. Westermen surged after him. One of the ragged attackers leapt from a ditch with an axe and died with Tywin's sword through his mouth. Another slashed at Tywin's reins and lost an arm at the elbow. The bank turned slick under hooves. Men tumbled together in the reeds. Through the white breath of horses and the spray of mud, Tywin saw not warriors but disorder. And disorder he knew how to kill. Then, a wagon on the bridge overturned. The crash of it shook the whole crossing. Flour sacks burst in pale clouds. An ox screamed again, fell, kicked, and pinned a man beneath the wheel. For an instant, everyone turned toward the sound. It was enough. A quarrel came out of the mist from somewhere low and close, not from the far bank where he had expected archers, but from the alder roots at the edge of the road. It struck under Tywin's raised arm, in the joint between breastplate and pauldron, where even the finest armor must leave a man his motion. The force of it punched him sideways in the saddle. His horse shied. He clamped his knees on instinct and cut downward at the shape rising from the roots. Steel met bone. A man went down. Tywin remained upright. "Brother!" Kevan's voice seemed very far off. Tywin tried to answer and blood filled his mouth, hot and astonishing. He looked at it spattered across his glove as if it belonged to someone else. The world narrowed with terrible speed. Sound came muted, then sharp, then muted again. Iron striking iron, men roaring, the hammer of hooves, someone calling for the bridge to be cleared. He pulled the quarrel free halfway, and knew from the feel of it that he had opened himself worse. His gauntlets slipped. The bank tilted. When he fell, it was not grandly. One foot caught in the stirrup. His shoulder hit mud, then water at the edge of the ditch. Cold rushed through the joints of his armor. He saw only reeds and sky. Kevan was there an instant later, slashing the stirrup leather free, hauling him clear with help from 2 guards. Tywin's head lolled once against his brother's arm. The red cloak was black where the blood soaked it. "Get the maester!" Kevan shouted. Tywin's eyes opened on him. They were furious, not frightened. "The gate," he said, or tried to. The words came thick and broken. Blood ran from the corner of his mouth into his beard. "We have them," Kevan said, though he did not know whether he meant the attackers or the city. "Hold, Tywin. Hold." The fighting was already ending. The West had closed around the ambush like a fist. Men dragged bodies from the reeds and shoved others back into the water. A dozen of the attackers tried to flee and were ridden down on the open road. What remained of the mist smelled now of wet earth, dung, and opened bodies. Tywin's hand gripped Kevan's forearm with astonishing strength one last time. There was command still in that hand, refusal, incredulity that flesh might dare fail him before business was concluded. Then the grip loosened. His gaze did not go soft. It only went elsewhere. By the time the sun reached its height, every man in the host knew. No command travels faster than grief. It moves from look to look, from the way officers cease arguing, from the strange care with which rough men step aside when a single wagon passes. The cloth over Tywin's body did more than conceal him. It declared a silence no trumpet could enforce. Men who had served him for 20 years rode with their mouths set hard. Men who had feared him more than loved him feared now what might follow. Even those who privately thought the West might breathe easier with him in the ground did not dare shape that thought fully, not while his banner yet hung above them. Kevan rode beside the wagon and listened to the army changing its mind about him in real time. It was almost audible. Sir Adam obeyed without pause. The captains came for orders and accepted them. Lesser men removed their helms when he passed. Yet beneath obedience there remained a searching uncertainty, as though all waited to see whether the dead lion's brother could make himself sound like the dead lion. Kevan knew he could not. He had neither Tywin's appetite for harsh example, nor his gift for making cruelty look like law. What he had instead was patience, duty, and a clearer sense than many gave him credit for of how badly one wrong choice could break a great house. The choice before him was large enough to break a kingdom. That night he called his principal bannerman beneath a dark canvas stretched between wagon tongues and spear shafts. Rain had gone. The air smelled of wet grass and tallow. 2 braziers glowed red at the edges of the gathering. Gregor Clegane came late, because Gregor always wished others to notice his coming. Amory Lorch came early, because Amory liked to be seen agreeing with power before it had even spoken. Sir Forley Prester stood with his hands folded in front of him, grave and watchful. Adam Marbrand leaned on a table corner and said nothing at first. On the boards before them lay a rough map scratched in charcoal. "The city is less than 3 days ahead," Kevan said. "Perhaps 2, if we push. Lord Robert is wounded. Lord Eddard Stark and Lord Jon Arryn may reach the walls before or after us depending on how fast they march and what roads they choose. King's Landing will not open to us on my brother's name. Not now." "Khan." Gregor's voice boomed through the canvas. "Then we beat the gates down in his memory." Amory gave a thin smile. "A city taken is a city taken. Whatever name the men inside cry at first." Kevan looked at them both. "And when we enter, in whose cause do we butcher? Aerys's, Robert's, ours alone." Gregor did not care whose cause stained his sword so long as the sword was used. Amory cared only that another man would own the blame. Neither answered. Sir Forley said, "If the city bars us, it names us suspect. Yet if we join the rebels openly now, we confess the late lord meant treason to the crown." "He did not march for Aerys," Adam said. "He did not march for Robert either," Kevan replied. That shut them. He had no desire to speak aloud what everyone with sense already knew. Tywin had marched for House Lannister and would have turned the moment to his own advantage with the clean certainty of a butcher choosing the right knife. Kevan was not ashamed of his brother's greatness. He was, however, keenly aware that men who survived Tywin often spent the rest of their lives calling his necessities monstrous. It was easier to praise victory than to sit where victory had first been imagined. "By law," Kevan said, and hated the phrase because of how it twisted the room. "Tyrion is Lord of Casterly Rock." Gregor snorted. Amory hid a smirk, too slowly. "Tyrion is 10, Kevan went on. "Jaime remains sworn to the Kingsguard unless a king releases him. Cersei is unwed. My brother's body lies 10 paces from this tent. Whatever else we do not shatter the rock on the same road that took him from us. Nah, and die. Easy. Sure, control." "What is that meant to mean?" Gregor asked. "It means," said Kevan very softly, "that you will not loose your men upon a city without clear command from me, and you will not seek for yourselves the sort of favor Lord Tywin could seize because you are not Tywin." The canvas seemed to draw tighter around them. Gregor stepped once closer. At full height, he made most rooms feel built for lesser men. Firelight crawled over the ugly angles of his helm and the black steel of his gorget. "Perhaps," he said, "the city will require harshness." "Perhaps," Kevan said. "If it does, I will tell you." The moment held. It broke because Adam laughed once, not merrily but with sheer disbelief that Gregor had thought to stare down Kevan in front of witnesses. "You heard him," he said. "Sit or go." Gregor stood another breath, then dropped onto a bench hard enough to make it groan. When the council finally dispersed, Kevan remained alone with the map. A candle guttered. He pressed both palms flat upon the board the way Tywin had done in the chamber at Casterly Rock, and found at once that the gesture gave him none of Tywin's certainty. The lines did not arrange themselves into obedience. They lay there, stubborn and plain. He sent his decisions before dawn. One raven rode for King's Landing, bearing no promise except safe conduct if the city would accept the West's submission to the next crowned king. Another rode north and east for the rebel host. House Lannister did not intend to defend Eddard Targaryen, but neither would it assault the city under uncertain claim. The West would stand off the walls until the rightful issue was settled. A cautious message. A coward's message, some would call it. Tywin would never have written such a letter. Kevan knew that. He also knew that Tywin had died before he could order the unspeakable with his own mouth, and that there are times when a man's love for his brother consists not in imitating his darkest instinct, but in preventing others from doing so badly in his name. By the second afternoon, scouts returned with firm news. The rebels were marching hard for the city. Robert lay behind them, still healing. Eddard Stark had the van, Jon Arryn close with him. The city's gates remained barred. Smoke from funeral pyres rose pale above the walls. Kevan ordered the host to encamp west of the city, well out of bowshot, and he furled the great lion banner at the center of camp. Not lowered, not hidden, furled. There was meaning in that too. At dusk, he went to Tywin's wagon alone. The body had been laid with more dignity than the road usually afforded the dead. A clean cloak covered the chest. The face, when Kevan drew the cloth back, had lost nothing of its sternness. Tywin looked not defeated, but interrupted. "You would have despised this," Kevan said to the still face. "The waiting, the uncertainty." "Nani, pa me, Gani." The dead did not answer, which was perhaps the first mercy Tywin had ever granted him. Kevan put the cloth back in place and stood for a while with one hand resting on the wagon side. He thought of Casterly Rock, of Cersei's fury, of the boy Tyrion, who would be called Lord by men who would rather bite through their own tongues, of Jaime in the city with a king mad enough to burn a world rather than lose it. When he turned away, the western sky was all fire. The city to the east was still only a dark line against it. The news reached Casterly Rock after midnight. The rookery bells woke the upper chambers. By the time Grand Maester Kraelin's first raven had been deciphered and copied cleanly, Half the rock was already whispering. Servants heard footsteps and made stories of them. Guards at stairheads repeated fragments with the solemn relish of men passing along something too grave to fully grasp. In the nursery tower, a wet nurse crossed herself over sleeping children who had not understood that an age had ended before they went to bed. Cersei did not wait to be summoned. She entered the solar wrapped in a black robe over her shift, her hair unbound and bright as beaten metal against the dark cloth. She had not wept. Perhaps she would later in private, or perhaps she would do as she usually did with any hurt great enough to humble her. Turn it outward until someone else bled first. Tyrion was there ahead of her, lifted still by habit into a chair too large for him, its lion claw arms framing his small bent body. He had come because no one had thought to bar him, and because if there was one thing he understood even at 10, it was that doors did not remain open long in great houses unless someone important had died on the other side of them. Grand Maester Crelin bowed as Cersei entered. The steward beside him did the same. Two women in nightdresses hovered near the door, uncertain whether to remain or vanish. "Well?" Cersei demanded. Crelin glanced at Tyrion and then back to her. "My lady." "Do not my lady me. Read it." The old man obeyed. His voice was careful now in a different way than before. Not with politics, but with proximity to grief that might turn sharp. He read the bare facts. The ambush on the road, the death of Lord Tywin, the host under Sir Kevan's command, the march continuing east, further reports to follow. Cersei stood perfectly still until he finished. Only then did her fingers close slowly around the back of a chair. "Ambush," she said. "By whom?" "The letter says broken men, perhaps remnants of..." "Broken men killed Tywin Lannister." She laughed once, and the sound was uglier than tears. "Then the realm should arm all its beggars and be done with knights." Tyrion looked at the parchment rather than at her. He had never loved their father, for love requires some hope of return, and Tywin had given him little enough of that. Yet death altered the air around a name. Tywin had been as fixed in the world as the rock itself. To imagine him gone was to imagine a sea cliff deciding not to stand one morning. Impossible things becoming fact were precisely what frightened children, no matter how clever. Crelin folded the letter. "There is another matter." Cersei's eyes snapped to him. "Speak." He hesitated, which told her before the words came what sort of matter it was. "By law," he said, "with Sir Jaime sworn to the Kingsguard and absent in the capital, Lord Tywin's heir is his surviving son." No one in the room moved. The sea below the rock pounded once against hidden stone. Then Cersei turned her head and looked at Tyrion. The look was so naked in its revulsion that even the servants lowered their eyes. Tyrion had seen hatred on his sister's face before. He had not seen this new ingredient in it, this sudden horror that the world might dare fit itself to rules she had never agreed to. That cannot be," she said. Crelin wet his lips. "It is the law, my lady. Until a king decides otherwise or Sir Jaime is lawfully released from his vows, your brother is Lord of Casterly Rock." "Lord," Cersei repeated, as if the word itself had gone rotten in her mouth. Tyrion put a hand on each chair arm and eased himself more upright. "I shouldn't think the rock will crumble for being named after me," he said. It was a mistake, though not because the words were wrong. It was because he had spoken them in her hearing while she was still searching for something to blame. She crossed the room so fast the women by the door gasped. One slap would have missed him sitting low. She seized the back of his chair instead and bent over him, face white with fury. "Do not mock me, you vile little beast. Do not dare." "I wasn't mocking," Tyrion said, though he half had been. "No?" Her fingers whitened on the carved wood. "Father is not even cold, and you grin in his place." He was not grinning. He knew enough not to point that out. Crelin said, "My lady, the boy has no part in..." "The boy is the part in it." She straightened, breathing hard. He should never have lived to hear the words. The women at the door exchanged a frightened glance. Crelin's face pinched shut like a purse string. Tyrion held her gaze because dropping his eyes had never saved him from anything. "I did live," he said. That seems to annoy many people. For an instant, something changed in Cersei's face. Not pity, nothing so simple. Perhaps merely the recognition that the crooked, unloved child before her had inherited not their father's place in any true sense, but the danger that clung to it. Men would bow to him now with false mouths. Men would whisper that the West could not be ruled by a dwarf. Men would begin at once to plan how to set him aside. Cersei's own thoughts had already run there and would run farther. "Jaime will come home," she said. "He will be released. He must." Crelin looked pained. "The Kingsguard serve for life. The Kingsguard served the Mad King, and look where that has brought them." She turned away from Tyrion as if he were a stain on the floor. "Write to Sir Kevan. Write that Jaime must be brought out of those white rags and placed where he belongs. Such things are decided by kings. Then let there be a king who knows better." Her gaze went to Joanna's portrait above the hearth. The painter had made their mother look younger than Cersei now was, the mouth soft, the eyes lively with some private amusement. The portrait had been ordered by Tywin himself after Joanna's death, and though he rarely stood before it long, he had never permitted it move. Cersei stared at it until her face grew still again. Not gentler, simply colder. When she spoke next, it was almost calm. "Seal the mourning apartments. No singers, no visitors without my leave. The household will wear black for a moon's turn, and any man who smirks over road talk of broken men will lose his tongue. Have the Septons pray for father's soul. Have them pray loudly." She looked at Tyrion once more. "And have someone attend my brother, not out of respect, so he does not mistake himself." "Men," she swept out. After she had gone, silence pooled in the chamber. Crelin sighed, old and tired. Tyrion was still looking at the portrait above the fire. "Do lords always become lords like this?" he asked. The maester considered the question longer than the boy expected. "Often enough," he said. "Suddenly, and to their cost." Tyrion nodded as if he were filing the answer away beside others. He slid down from the chair with an awkward, practiced movement and landed harder than a taller child would have. For a moment, the room was too large around him. The chair still smelled faintly of his father's gloves from all the nights Tywin had sat there reading accounts or hearing petitions, and never once invited the crooked son near enough to touch the parchment. "He won't stay dead," Tyrion said quietly. Crelin looked startled. "All men do in the end." "No," Tyrion said. "I mean in people. He'll go on telling everyone what to do, even when he's gone." The old man had no answer to that either, because it was true. Tyrion limped to the window and looked out into the dark where the sea moved unseen. Somewhere far away, his father's body rocked on a road wagon toward a city that might crown a new king before the dead old order had even been properly buried. Somewhere farther still, Jaime wore white for a master who burned men alive. The world had grown suddenly larger and more dangerous, and with danger came stories. Tyrion was afraid. He also wanted very much to know what happened next. King's Landing smelled of fear, piss, lamp smoke, and river rot. Jaime had known the city in splendor. He had watched tourneys glitter below the walls, while ladies laughed behind silk veils, and the court came perfumed to feast in halls hung with gold. He had also known it in the king's bad moods, when screams from the black cells seemed to travel through stone and a lord's seat at council might be empty the next day because its owner had displeased the wrong whim. Now he knew a third city, one with all its gates barred, its markets half empty, its nobles whispering behind closed hands, and its small folk looking up at every bell as if the bells themselves might decide who lived. Word of Rhaegar's death had reached the Red Keep like an axe in a church. No one had spoken above a murmur for a full day after. Aerys had raved, laughed, wept, and ordered 3 different men beaten for bringing him parts of the same truth. Lord Carlton Chelstead had already died screaming for protesting the wildfire stores. Rosser, chief pyromancer, had been raised in his place and wore the chain of hand with the glee of a man invited to supper by gods he could not believe had noticed him. Varys moved softly through it all, pale and powdered, his slippers soundless, his smile as unreadable as old parchment. Then came the second blow, Lord Tywin dead on the road. Aerys took that news on the Iron Throne. "Dead," he said, leaning forward so far that the points of the throne bit the cloth of his robe. "Dead in the mud? That proud old lion? Who killed him?" The messenger knelt with his forehead to the floor. "Broken men, your grace, or raiders. The report is uncertain. Broken men." The king's mouth opened in a cackle so sudden and shrill that two court ladies flinched outright. "The realm spits him out at last. Oh, I should have had his head years ago. The gods have done it for me." He turned his red-rimmed eyes toward Jaime. "Do you hear, sir? Your father fed to crows by beggars. Perhaps the dwarf sits the rock now." He laughed again, hands scratching at the arm of the throne. His nails were long and yellowed. Jaime stood in white and said nothing. What was there to say? A strange hollow had opened inside him when Varys first murmured the news. He had spent half his life resenting Tywin's will pressing against him from a distance, shaping him even in absence, and yet the thought of the man gone struck like a hammer. No father coming to the gates. No father to judge him. No father to claim him back from vows he had taken too young and too vainly. The king mistook silence for hurt, and took pleasure in it. "Your line diminishes," Aerys said. Jaime the oath-sworn, Cersei the girl, and that twisted little monster, a fine legacy for the mighty hand. Jaime watched a vain pulse at the king's temple. He thought of all the men Aerys had burned. Rickard Stark in his armor. Brandon strangling himself reaching for a blade placed just beyond his grasp. The pyromancers running at command like eager dogs. He thought of Rhaegar too, who had moved through the same halls with sadness in his face, as if he heard music no one else could quite catch. Rhaegar had understood. Jaime thought suddenly, though he had never said enough. Perhaps he had understood too late. All princes did. At the side of the hall, Elia Martell sat with her daughter against her, and her infant son in a wet nurse's arms. Rhaenys, old enough to sense disaster, had stopped asking when her father would come home. She stared instead at the king with the grave, offended confusion children reserve for adults behaving badly. Aegon slept, then woke, then cried, then slept again. Elia's health after his birth had never fully recovered. There was delicacy in her body, but not in her bearing. She held herself straight even now, before the madness of a court that had made her children hostages to their grandsire's fear. When the hall at last emptied, Jaime remained on guard outside the throne room doors. The torchlight along the corridor wavered in the drafts that moved through the ancient stone. Somewhere far below, carts clattered in the lower bailey. Men were hauling jars again. Always hauling jars. Elia came to him with only one waiting woman and the wet nurse. She moved carefully, as if the bones beneath her skin had turned to glass. Rhaenys walked at her side holding her hand and trying very hard not to drag her feet. The wet nurse had Aegon wrapped close. "Sir Jaime," Elia said. He bowed his head. "Princess." Her eyes searched his face with the frankness of a woman who no longer had time for courtesies that disguised danger. "The king says my children are safer here than in Dorne. He says many things. Which ones are true?" Jaime looked past her at the wall. The white cloak on his shoulders had never felt heavier. "The city may come under attack soon. I know that. The walls are strong." She gave a faint, humorless smile. "So is a locked room, until the wrong man has the key." Rhaenys tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mama, may we go to the gardens tomorrow? The fountain court, not the king's gardens?" "Perhaps," Elia said. Jaime watched the child's face. She had Rhaegar's dark Targaryen coloring through the Martell cast, and the directness too. His son in the nurse's arms was scarcely more than a bundle of warm breath and silk. This, Jaime thought, is what realms kill for. Elia lowered her voice. "If the gates fall, will you protect them?" The question struck him more cleanly than any spear. He could not answer as a king's guard should have answered, because a king's guard should have protected them already from the man seated in the throne room behind him. He could not answer as Tywin's son, because Tywin was dead and House Lannister now lay in disarray on a road no one controlled. He answered finally as a man cornered by his own conscience. I will do what I can. Her gaze remained on him another heartbeat. She understood promises and the shapes men gave them when they dared not promise enough. That is not nothing, she said. Varys appeared then, noiseless as damp. Your grace, he murmured to Elia with a bow better than many lords managed. The king asks that you remain in Maegor's hold fast tonight, merely precaution. Against whom? Elia asked. Varys's painted smile did not alter. Against uncertainty. Jaime watched them go. Later, Rossart descended from the throne room in a greenish robe that caught the torchlight strangely. The pyromancer smelled of oil, ash, and something sweetly noxious beneath both. The king wishes the stores checked again, Rossart said. All of them. All? Jaime repeated. Rossart's smile widened, delighted at the asking. The king has grand designs for those who would deny him. How many stores are there? Rossart's smile widened, delighted at the asking. Enough. He moved off whispering to himself. Jaime stared after him and felt, for the first time not as rumor or disgust but as immediate fact, the living shape of catastrophe underneath the city. Wildfire in vaults and cellars, beneath streets and septs and crowded alleys where children slept free to a pallet. Aerys had not been gathering fire for defense. He had been burying judgment. When Jaime returned to the throne room, Aerys was alone, except for 2 guards and the swords all around him. The king sat hunched, fingers moving on the armrest as if counting invisible things. Send for Rossart again, Aerys said without turning. And keep my grandchildren close. If they lose a city for me, they can at least die in one for me. Jaime's hand tightened on his sword hilt. As your grace commands. The words tasted like filth. Through the slit windows beyond the hall, he could see the city spread below, vast and darkening. The black water burning red under sunset. Somewhere out there men were already marching to decide the fate of everyone within those walls. Jaime had believed once that knighthood meant standing between danger and the weak. In King's Landing, he had learned that often it meant standing one step behind danger while someone worse gave orders. That night, he slept in armor. He dreamed of green fire. On the western rise beyond bowshot of King's Landing, the Lannister camp settled into a tense, watchful quiet, unlike any camp Tywin would ever have allowed. Tywin had preferred motion to waiting. Motion gave men purpose and denied them time to imagine alternatives. Kevan knew this because he had spent half his life making his brother's preferences real before Tywin had quite finished speaking them. Now there were too many alternatives and no brother left to sweep them aside. From the ridge, the city looked deceptively peaceful in morning light. Its walls ran pale and solid above the river. Septy domes caught the sun. Smoke rose from 1,000 hearths. Had a man not known better, he might have taken it for an ordinary late summer day in the capital. But the gates were shut. No trade wagons lined the roads. Tiny helmed figures moved constantly on the battlements, and once, just past dawn, Kevan saw the bright blink of what might have been armor near the king's gate, then vanish. Sir Adam Marbrand came to his pavilion with a sealed letter in one hand. Aaron's answer. Kevan broke it at once. The parchment was spare and courtly. Lord John Arryn acknowledged the West's stated intent not to defend Aerys, and requested that the Lannister host remain clear of the walls while the rebel lords treated for the city. If House Lannister meant honestly to submit, the question of pardons and places would be answered after the city's surrender. A wise letter. Also a warning. Stay where you are. Do not force our hand. Kevan passed it to Adam. He trusts us exactly as much as he should. Adam skimmed it and huffed through his nose. Which is not at all. Would you? No. Neither of them smiled. Later that same morning, a runner announced Gregor and Amory asking audience. Kevan almost laughed at the formality of it. Asking implied room for refusal. He let them in anyway. Gregor filled the entry like a siege engine wrapped in steel. Amory slid in his wake, Smaller, neat, fox-faced. Both men smelled freshly armed. "The city has not opened," Gregor said, "and Aaron writes as if we were camp followers begging place by his fire." "He writes as a man with the winning host on the road," Kevan said. Gregor's visor was up. The scarred flesh beneath his eyes looked raw, even in shade. Then perhaps he should be reminded there are other hosts. Amory spread his hands lightly. "Men say the city is frightened. Frightened cities make mistakes. A postern may open by moonrise if the right encouragement is offered." By right encouragement he meant bribes, promises, false names, whatever would put Lannister men within the walls before Ned Stark or Jon Arryn could stop them. Tywin might once have listened. Tywin might have done more than listen. Kevan knew that and felt the temptation like a bruise pressed hard. The advantage remained there, glittering and foul. If he took the city first, Robert would owe him. If he took it brutally, Robert would owe him more. The debt would be measured in offices, marriages, pardons, power. The West could emerge from Tywin's death, not diminished, but indispensable. And if the city burned or bled, the blame might rest safely on the dead. Men were always eager to believe the worst of Tywin Lannister. Kevan had only to imitate rumor and call it obedience. But imitation is easiest for men who do not know the full cost of the thing they mimic. He thought of the road wagon carrying his brother. He thought of Cersei, who would certainly prefer bold wickedness to cautious decency if wickedness promised her a crown. He thought of Tyrion, child lord in name, and of Jaime within the city as hostage to a madman. He thought most of all of what would happen if Gregor and Amory entered a frightened capital without a living Tywin's iron hand to pull them back once enough had been done. There are hounds men keep leashed, not because the hounds understand the hunt, but because they do not. "No," Kevan said. Gregor's head shifted a fraction as if he had not heard. "No posterns, no false banners, no storming walls without open cause and clear claim." Kevan's voice hardened. "The West will not begin Robert's reign by murdering for a king we have not crowned. And if the city opens to Stark instead?" Amory asked. "Then Stark enters first." Gregor took one step closer. The brazier coals clicked softly in the hush. "My lord brother would never—" "My lord brother is dead," Kevan said. The words cracked like a whip between them. For a moment no one moved at all. Then Kevan went on, slower and colder. "He cannot command you. I do. You will keep your men in camp and under discipline. Any rider caught moving toward the walls without leave will hang. Any company that breaks into the city before I order it will be treated as outlaw. If you wish to test whether I mean that, do so before witnesses. It will save time." "No, Wandayan, Benesi." Amory looked down first. Gregor did not. But at length he grunted through his teeth, turned, and strode out hard enough to brush the tent flap from its ties. Adam let out a breath. "Well, they think gentleness and weakness the same thing," Kevan said. Outside, the afternoon brightened. The city's bells began to ring in some far-off quarter, thin on the wind. That evening, Kevan rode the perimeter of camp. He spoke to sentries, inspected wagon lines, asked after fodder, ordered trenches cut deeper and banners kept furled still. Men straightened at his approach. Some seemed surprised he knew their captains' names. Tywin had ruled by distance, a gold mountain seen from below. Kevan had always ruled what little he ruled by proximity, by remembering which rider favored his left knee after a fall, which quartermaster skimmed, which hedge knight needed praise before he would do what fear alone should have managed. Not grand gifts, useful ones. At sunset, a small party under peace cloth rode from the city, stopped halfway, and waited. Kevan sent for Lee Prester and 3 guards. They returned before dark. "Pycelle would see us admitted," Forley reported. "But the king will not hear of it. The gates remain barred. Stark's vanguard is said to be close. The city has stores for some weeks if rationed, but tempers are poor, and the gold cloaks uncertain. "Me? Any word of Sir Jaime?" Kevan asked. Forley shook his head. "Only that the White Knight remains with the king." That night Kevan dreamed not of Tywin but of a younger day at the Rock when Tywin had first placed a sword in his hand and corrected his grip wordlessly by pressing 2 fingers to the hilt. "You do not hold steel as if asking it a favor," their father had said from the yard rail. Tywin at 14 had already looked upon lesser boys with old impatience. Kevan had adored him then with the simple, unquestioning loyalty second sons often give their elder brothers when the brother seems a law of nature. He woke before dawn to the tramp of arriving men. Stark banners showed first on the ridge north of the city, direwolf gray against a whitening sky. Falcon banners came after. The rebel van had arrived. Kevan stood outside his pavilion and watched them deploy. He felt all at once the strange mingling of relief and dread that comes when indecision is finally taken from a man by events. The choice was no longer whether to take the city first. That chance had passed. Now the choice would be what face House Lannister turned toward the winners when the gates were opened and the smoke cleared. He thought, unexpectedly, that Tywin would hate that answer but might yet survive by it. Then the first horns of the rebel host sounded across the fields, and all thought had to make room for war. Ned Stark reached the city under a pale sun, and saw at once that the songs would lie about this day if men survived to sing them. There was no triumphant rush of banners, no grateful city flinging open its gates at the sight of deliverance. King's Landing crouched behind stone like an animal with its back up, ugly and fearful and far too full of innocent lives for any good man to feel easy setting fire beneath it. The fields west of the walls were trampled by 2 armies that did not trust one another. The Westermen on one rise, orderly and watchful beneath furled lions, and the host of Arryn, Stark, Tully, and Baratheon spreading north and east as it came in, battered by long campaigning and still hungry for an end. Robert was not with them. He had sent Ned ahead again, as he had after the Trident, because Robert's wounds bound him to slower progress, and Robert had never been patient with delay. "Take the city if you can," he had said, blood crusted at one side of his beard and fever bright in him. "Only do not let the Mad King slip." Easy words from a man not watching the walls rise higher with every league. Jon Arryn rode beside Ned as they surveyed the ground. The Lord of the Eyrie had a calm face in war that could almost be mistaken for age alone, if a man did not know the iron of him. "Lannister keeps his distance," Jon observed. "Or his options." "Quite." They met Kevan beneath a peace banner before noon, halfway between camps, with only a handful of guards each. Ned had never much cared for Lannisters. Not before Aerys killed his father and brother, and less after hearing all his foster brother had suffered with Tywin's pride forever circling the edges of court like a hawk waiting for weakness. Yet the man who reigned in before them was not Tywin. Kevan's grief sat plain enough in his face, though held in check. "My lords," Kevan said, "I offer condolences for the blood you have spent to bring the realm to this pass." "A courteous beginning," Jon Arryn said. "I hope it ends as well." Kevan inclined his head. "House Lannister will not fight for Eddard Targaryen. The West stands ready to bend the knee to the rightful king once he is crowned." Ned looked past him toward the furled lions. "Convenient." Kevan accepted that without protest. "So it may seem." "Lord Tywin marched late," Ned said. "Now he is dead later still. Had he lived, would he have made the same offer? A different man might have bridled." Kevan only met his eyes. "My brother is beyond answering, Lord Stark. I can answer only for myself." "And for 12,000 men," Ned said. Jon laid one hand lightly on his saddle bow, a quiet signal for ease, though his own gaze remained keen. "We have no wish to fight the West if the West means no mischief. Keep your host clear of the walls. If the city yields, we will speak further. If the city forces assault, you will remain where you are unless called." "And Jaime?" Kevan asked before he could stop himself. Ned's face altered very slightly at the name. "Jaime serves the king he swore to. He is my blood, and Aerys murdered mine." Ned's voice sharpened. "Do not ask me for comfort on that score." Kevan's mouth tightened. I ask only that he not be slain for standing where his vows put him." Jon Arryn said, "If Sir Jaime yields when ordered, his fate will be judged, not guessed." It was no promise, but it was more than Ned would have given if left alone. Kevan accepted it. As he rode back to his camp, Ned watched him go and felt distrust settle deeper rather than lift. There was something almost more unnerving in a Lannister who seemed reasonable. Tywin's ambition had at least possessed a shape. Kevan's caution might hide any number of purposes. Yet the lions remained on their ridge, and no more. By late afternoon, the siege had begun. Not a formal, long, starving siege with lines of circumvallation and months of waiting. No one had time for that. Storm's End still endured Mace Tyrell's investment in Robert's name. Dragonstone still held the Queen and her younger children. Every day the capital remained shut was a day for plots to root. Jon knew it. Ned knew it. The men on the walls surely knew it too. A herald went to the King's Gate under parley and called for surrender in Robert's name. He received no answer at all for so long that Ned thought perhaps the man had not been heard. Then, a single arrow landed in the dirt 10 feet short of him. "Well," said Hallis Mullen beside Ned, "that's one sort of answer." The next day they brought up rams, mantlets, and scaling ladders from wagon trains, laboriously dragged behind the host since River Run. Stone throwers were set where ground allowed. Archers began the ceaseless work of keeping heads off battlements. The city replied with bolts, stones, and pitch. Men died on both sides to very little purpose. Ned spent the first night of the assault lines among his own, cloak wrapped tight against a wind coming off the river. Fires winked all along the fields. From the city there drifted other sounds too. Dogs barking, distant bells, somewhere the thin wail of a child. He thought of Lyanna in Dorne and wondered if she yet lived to hear any bells at all. "Promise me," he heard in memory, though he did not know then the shape of the promise still waiting for him. War always made private vows feel nearer, as if death were listening and eager to witness. The third morning a deserter came over the wall by rope and broke an ankle on landing. He was a gold cloak, no older than 20, gray with terror, and he babbled before the pain had even been set. The city was on half rations in the poor districts. The king trusted no one. Wildfire jars were being moved in cellars at night under guard of the pyromancers. The queen and prince were gone to Dragonstone, but Princess Elia and the children remained within the Red Keep. "Hostages," Jon Arryn said quietly when the boy had been led away. Ned's hand closed around the edge of the campaign table. "Children." Jon looked at him with that patient, grave regard which had steadied two foster sons through youth and rebellion alike. "Yes. What will Robert do if they are taken alive?" Jon did not answer immediately. In the silence, the camp outside went on with its ordinary, brutal life. Hammering, coughing, men laughing too loud over dice. "At the least," he said finally, "I will do everything in my power that he is not presented with corpses and told to be grateful." Ned knew what that meant. It meant Jon had thought on the question already and disliked his own conclusion. Robert's hatred for Targaryens was not a small thing. It had been fed by prophecy of murder before he ever saw the bodies of Rickard and Brandon, or heard of Lyanna's taking. Rhaegar's children were children, yes. They were also dragon spawn in the eyes of many men, and claims had started wars before. That night the city burned green in Ned's dreams, though no such fire yet showed above the walls. Inside King's Landing, hunger began to fray obedience. Small folk in Flea Bottom rioted over bread and were put down by the gold cloaks with clubs and blades. 2 houses near the Mudgate caught fire under unclear circumstances, and the flames leapt roof before dawn. The air carried smoke all the way to the rebel lines. On the battlements, men shouted insults that grew less spirited each hour. Twice more Jon Arryn offered terms. Twice the gates remained shut. On the 5th day, when a stone from the rebel catapult shattered part of the barbican at the King's Gate and defenders scrambled in confusion to shore the gap, Ned looked up at the walls and felt certainty come coldly over him. "This cannot wait," he said. Jon studied the damage, the movement on the battlements, the tremor of opportunity beneath the chaos. Then he nodded. At dawn tomorrow. Orders ran through the camp by lantern light. Ladders to the river gate. Rams at the King's Gate and Lion Gate both. Archers massed to suppress the walls. Reserves placed where breach was likeliest. Ned spent the last quiet hour before sleep sharpening ice by hand, although the greatsword hardly needed it. The scrape of stone on steel steadied him. Before dawn, as the eastern sky was only beginning to pale, the bells of King's Landing began to ring. Not in surrender, in panic. The bells woke Jaime from a half-sleep in a chair outside the throne room doors. For one disoriented instant, he did not know whether the sound belonged to his dream or the waking world. Then the corridor filled with running feet. A guard from the outer ward came pelting around the corner, breathless, helm askew. "They're through the outer works at the King's Gate," he gasped. "And the river gate is under ladders." The bells pounded on. Jaime was through the doors before the man finished. Aerys sat hunched on the iron throne, one hand clenched around an armrest as if the metal itself might flee him. Rossart stood below the steps in his ugly green robe. Pycelle had gone almost white. Varys alone looked exactly as he had looked yesterday, and that frightened Jaime more than if the eunuch had panicked. "They come," Aerys cried when Jaime entered. "At last they come? Good, good. Let them break their teeth, Rossart." Rossart bowed. "Your Grace. Go. You know where. Burn them." The king's lips trembled around the words with something too close to pleasure. "Burn the traitors. Burn the city. Burn the rats in their hovels, and the lords in their finery. Let Robert be king of ashes." For a heartbeat, the hall simply held the command there between them. Jaime had imagined this moment before, though never clearly. In imagination, there had always been more time, some final warning from reason, some other man stepping forward first. There was none. There was a mad king, a pyromancer smiling, a city full of people, and the knowledge blooming at last into certainty that every oath he had ever sworn could be made a weapon in a bad man's hand if he was coward enough to obey. Rossart turned. Jaime moved. His sword came free in the same motion that carried him down the throne dais. Rossart had time only to widen his eyes before steel took him across the throat so hard the pyromancer's chain flashed silver and red together. Blood sprayed the steps. The old man clawed at nothing and fell. For a stunned instant, even the bells seemed to falter. Aerys rose halfway from the throne, white hair flying wild. "What are you doing?" he shrieked. Jaime kicked Rossart's body aside and pointed his sword at the guards by the door. "If either of you moves for him, you die first." They stared. These were palace men, not heroes. They had seen Aerys burn lords for less than a bad expression. They had seen Jaime kill a man in the span of a breath. Neither moved. The king was still shouting, "Traitor! Treason! Kill him! Kill him!" Jaime mounted the steps. If he had thought the decision would feel clean, he had been a greater fool than he knew. It felt sick and bright and horribly calm all at once. Aerys backed up the throne's cruel steps, his thin old hands pawing at the air as if words themselves might cut. "Don't let him touch me," the king cried to no one who meant to obey. "I am the dragon. I am..." Jaime drove the point through his back beneath the shoulder blade. Aerys made a sound less like a scream than surprise. Jaime pulled the blade free and struck again, and the king crumpled on the steps of the throne he had fouled for too many years. Blood ran down through the iron bars and pooled black-red on the floor. The bells went on ringing. Pycelle had dropped to his knees. Varys stood perfectly still with his hands hidden in his sleeves. Jaime turned on him, sword red to the hilt. How many pyromancers? The eunuchs did not blink. Enough to unmake the city if given time. Names: Garrigus Bellis, and several lesser wisdoms. They have cellars beneath the dragon pit, beneath the guild hall, beneath the street of flower, beneath. I know beneath. Jaime was already moving again. To the guards, bar the doors. No one enters this hall, but by my leave. If any man says the king commands otherwise, show him his king. To Pycelle, who was shaking so hard his chain clicked on the floor. "Stay alive and be useful. Send runners to every captain of the gold cloaks who still listens. The gates are to open to Lord Stark when I order it. Anyone bearing wildfire jars is to be seized." Pycelle gaped. Jaime seized the old man by the front of his robe and dragged him half up. "Did you hear me?" Yes, sir." "Good." He left the throne room at a run. What followed became afterward a haze of stone corridors, shouted orders, wrong turns corrected by Varys hissed directions, and the terror of being late. One pyromancer Jaime found in a cellar chapel beneath the Red Keep muttering over candle stubs and green glass. Another he did not find at all, only the dead man's trail where a panicked guardsman had hacked him down after hearing that Rossart had fallen. In a tunnel leading under the lower ward, Jaime himself cut down a pair of guildmen hauling a cask no bigger than a child's coffin, and nearly died to the vapor when the stopper cracked. The smell of it was sweet as rot and made his eyes water. Above them, assault thundered on the gates. At some point he realized he still wore his white cloak, and that it had gone smeared red and brown and streaked with something green that hissed where it touched stone. He laughed once, breathless and wild. White Dada white. That had been the joke all along. A captain of the gold cloaks, broad-faced, scarred, sober enough to understand fear, met him in the lower bailey with 20 men at his back. "My sir," the captain began, then checked himself when he saw the blood. "The outer works won't hold long." "Good," Jaime said. "When the King's Gate falls, or when I send word, whichever comes first, you will open the inner gate to Eddard Stark and no one else. You will keep your men from looting, or I'll kill the lot of you one by one. The king is dead." The captain stared. "Dead? Do you doubt me?" "No." The man swallowed. "No, sir." "Then live through this by being clever. Keep civilians away from any green jars you find. Kill any pyromancer who argues." By then the Red Keep was roaring with rumor. Servants ran duck. Women prayed aloud in corners. Somewhere in Maegor's holdfast a child was crying fit to split her own throat. Jaime found Elia there with the wet nurse, Rhaenys, and the infant prince, all gathered in a chamber whose thick walls had muffled the bells to a relentless muffled pounding. When he entered, Elia rose too quickly and had to catch at the table. Fear had hollowed the color from her face, but not the line of her spine. "What has happened?" "Aerys is dead," Jaime said. The room seemed to tilt under the words. Rhaenys stared at him. "Did my grandsire die?" "Yes." "Who killed him?" the child asked. Jaime looked at her and for once in his life found no ready lie. "I did." The wet nurse made a choking sound. Elia closed her eyes just once, briefly, and when she opened them again there was something different in them. Not trust. Never that. But perhaps a recalculation of what gods might still be bargaining in this room. "Will we die next?" she asked. "Not if I can prevent it." The answer came easier now because he had already damned himself beyond recovery. "Stark will be through soon. Keep the children with you. Do not leave these rooms unless men in Stark or Arryn colors stand outside the door. If any man wearing Lannister crimson comes first, do not trust him." "Nay." Empa. That last surprised even him. It was true nonetheless. Varys, appearing once more from some half-seen side passage, inclined his head. "I can improve their chances if Sir Jaime permits." Jaime looked at the eunuch. "Can you?" "I have spent my life improving the chances of the endangered," Varys said softly. "Sometimes even successfully." Jaime almost laughed at the audacity of the sentence, and would have if the world were not collapsing all around them. "Then do it." He left them there, and went at last to the throne room again because, some twisted part of him thought, all stories about kings ended sooner or later in that ugly chair. Aerys lay where he had fallen. The iron bars above him cast broken shadows across the blood. The doors were barred from within as ordered. Pycelle sat collapsed at the foot of a pillar, whispering prayers under his breath. When Jaime climbed the steps and turned, the city below the windows sounded different. Not one. Not safe, but changing. Then the first hammer blow struck the gate of the Red Keep from within the lower yard, and voices rose in another tongue. Northmen. Jaime sat on the Iron Throne to wait. The Red Keep did not fall all at once. It came apart by chambers and stairwells and courtyards, in bursts of confusion, pockets of resistance. Doors barred too late. Men surrendering because no clear order remained to stiffen them. When the inner gate opened from within, Ned's men poured through expecting the worst, and found instead a fortress already broken at its center by an invisible hand. He led the push to the throne room himself, because if the Mad King still lived, Ned would see the end with his own eyes. The floor before the doors was slick with blood not yet dry. 3 bodies lay in the corridor, one in green robes. Hallis Mullen wrinkled his nose. Pyromancer, he guessed. Stand clear, Ned said. The doors were not locked. One shove sent them open. For the briefest instant, the great hall looked almost composed. Sunlight from the high windows fell in long, dusty bars over the iron monstrosity at the far end, over the dark red stain on the steps, over the white-cloaked knight sitting the throne as if born to a place he had no right to occupy. Jaime had no helm on. His hair, golden as his house, was clotted darker near one temple. Blood ran down one vambrace and had dried across the knuckles of his sword hand. Eddard Targaryen sprawled dead below him with his gray hair fanned over the iron like dirty silk. Ned stopped so suddenly the men behind nearly struck him. For a moment, he heard not the city, not the boots of his own guards spreading behind him. Not even his own breathing. He heard only memory, Brandon choking on his chain before Eris laughed. Lord Rickard burning in his armor. The screams that had changed the world before Ned ever held a command. And now the last Targaryen king lay butchered by his own sworn shield. Jaime regarded him from the throne with eyes too tired for triumph. You are late, Stark. The words would have earned another man a sword in the mouth. Ned felt anger rise so fiercely it came out cold instead. You sat there while your king died. Jaime glanced down at Eris's body. It would have been difficult before that. A couple of Ned's men laughed despite themselves, harsh with battle madness. Ned did not. Get down. Jaime looked at the throne beneath him, then at Ned. Something unreadable moved across his face. Mockery, perhaps, and perhaps shame, though Jaime Lannister had never worn either long enough for Ned to be certain he recognized them. He rose and descended the steps. When he reached the floor, he sheathed his sword without being asked. The pyromancer Rossard is dead. Others may still be at large. The king ordered the city burned. Ned stared at him. Burned? With wildfire. Jaime's mouth twisted. Did no one tell you Ares loved his toys? There are caches under half the city. Pycelle, from the side, found enough courage to nod miserably. It is true, my lord. His grace, his late grace, he intended. Ned looked from the old maester to the dead king to Jaime, and against his will, the shape of the room altered. The throne no longer seemed merely a usurper's seat beneath a traitor. It became instead the place where a man might have chosen between one vow and 500,000 lives. Ned still did not like the choice. He liked less that it had been needed. Where is Princess Elia? He asked. Jaime answered at once. Alive. In Maegor's holdfast with her children. Varys is with them. Nah. Ned did not mean to show relief, but felt it leave him all the same. Alive. Gods. Alive that... You knew, he said to Jaime, and the disgust returned by another road. You knew what was planned and yet did nothing until the hammer was at the gate. Jaime's face shuddered. Say what you like when the city isn't sitting on a lake of green fire, Stark. Ned had no good answer to that either. He hated the man for making one impossible. He turned to Hallis. Secure the king's body. Post men at every known cellar and beneath every sept the pyromancers can name. Find the guild hall. Seize every man in green robes or no robes. No looting. Any man caught raping, burning, or breaking into homes loses the hand he uses first and the head he thinks with second. Spread it. No! Hallis struck fist to chest and went. "To Jory Castle, already bloodied and bright-eyed from the fight," Ned said. 20 men with me. The rest hold this hall. Sir Jaime is not to leave it." Jaime laughed softly, the sound worn raw. "As you command." Ned went to Maegor's holdfast at a run. The women there had barred themselves within the chamber Varys had chosen. It took the eunuch's own voice through the door before the bolt was drawn. When Ned entered, he was suddenly, acutely aware of how monstrous he must look to them. Half-armored, splashed with mud and blood, greatsword over one shoulder, gray cloak torn. Rhaenys shrank behind her mother. The wet nurse held Aegon so tightly he fussed in protest. Elia Martell stood. For a heartbeat, they only looked at one another. Two strangers carrying histories heavy enough to kill children. "My lady," Ned said, forcing his voice lower than battle had left it. "I am Eddard Stark of Winterfell. The king is dead. The city is taken. No man will harm you under my protection." Bembish. No man. He heard the promise and knew how large it was. Robert was not yet here. Robert might not thank him for making it. Still, he could say nothing else and remain himself. Elia's gaze did not soften, but it steadied. "Under yours," she repeated. "And under Lord Robert's?" Ned could not lie as prettily as courtiers did. "Lord Robert has not yet arrived." A small, sad understanding passed through her face. She had lived too long among kings not to hear the edges of truth. Rhaenys peered out from Elia's skirts. "Did you kill my grandfather?" "No." "Who did?" Ned looked once toward the corridor where Jaime's shadow seemed still to linger in his thoughts. "A knight who should have protected him," he said. The child considered that in silence more solemn than most adults could manage. Varys glided a pace nearer. "My Lord Stark, the matter of the royal family will require delicacy." "It will require guards," Ned said. "Certainly. Also delicacy." Ned's mouth thinned. "I know what it will require." He stationed Northmen and Vale men both outside the chambers, so no one might say later that one faction had controlled access alone. He ordered food, water, a maester to see Elia if she wished it, and fresh linen for the children. The practicalities steadied him. Practicalities always had. Grief and rage were large, but bread and swords decided what happened before dawn. By the time he returned to the throne room, order of a harsh sort had begun to spread through the keep. The dead were being laid in rows. Fires in the lower wards had been checked before they ran far. Gold cloaks uncertain of allegiance were disarmed and made to stack spears in heaps. Small folk taken in the confusion as suspected looters were squatting tied in the outer yard awaiting judgment. Above it all, the bells still rang, but now in patterns as captains tried to tell the city the siege was over. Jaime remained where Ned had left him, seated this time on a lower step beneath the throne with his wrists before him, though no one had thought to bind them yet. He looked up when Ned entered. "They live?" he asked. Ned did not like that the answer mattered to him. "For now." Jaime exhaled once, almost a laugh, almost relief, and bowed his head. "Good." Ned stared at him. This golden, arrogant, dishonored man who had saved a city and shamed his vows. This son of Tywin Lannister who had not behaved as Tywin Lannister's son was expected to behave. Ned wanted the world to be simpler than that. The world refused. "Why sit the throne?" he asked at last. Jaime lifted his head again. "Because it was there. Because my legs were shaking. Because if I had leaned on a wall, one of your men might have mistaken me for a servant and run me through before I could tell him where the wildfire lay. Choose whichever answer offends you least." Ned did not choose. Outside, the sun sank behind the western hills where the lion banner still waited beyond the city. Evening spilled red across the Blackwater. King's Landing had been taken without the sack Ned had feared when he first saw Lannister banners on the horizon in another life he had not lived. Yet the day felt no cleaner for that mercy. Too much blood had already soaked into too many stones. When the ravens left the rookery at twilight, they carried tidings the realm would scarcely know how to believe. Tywin Lannister dead on the road. Aerys Targaryen slain by Sir Jaime of the Kingsguard. King's Landing taken by Eddard Stark. Princess Elia and the royal children alive. The last message would disturb the sleep of half the 7 kingdoms before the moon was down. Robert arrived 2 days later under stag banners snapping hard in a river wind. He rode despite his wounds because Robert Baratheon had never accepted that his body might dictate terms to his will. The cut he had taken on the trident pulled at him visibly when he dismounted, and the fever that had worried Jon Arryn still put too much color in his face. But to the men lining the outer yard, he looked every inch a conqueror. Broad-shouldered, black-haired, great of chest, with a war hammer carried as easily as other men wore swords. Victory clung to him even in bandages. So did appetite, anger, and the certainty that the world existed to be struck until it answered. He embraced Ned in the yard with one arm and a wince. "You've kept the city standing then. Better than I expected from the smell." He looked past Ned toward the higher towers. "And the dragon? Dead." Robert's grin flashed savage and sudden. "Good." By the time they reached the throne room, word had spread ahead of them enough that captains and lords were already gathering there, each eager to witness the meeting that would settle more than one account. Jon Arryn stood near the base of the steps. Pycelle hovered farther back, pale and prayerful. Varys remained what he always was, present without seeming attached to any side, though no one present was fool enough to trust that appearance. Jaime sat guarded beneath the windows, wrists bound now in chain, his white cloak removed, his hair newly washed of blood, and somehow making him look younger and more dangerous both. Aerys was gone, laid out under guard for the rites due a king, however foul. The throne itself waited empty. Robert mounted the steps slowly, his wound protesting each rise, and turned to look down over the hall. He belonged there in one way Aerys never had. Not because he was gentler or wiser. Perhaps he was neither. But strength without shame draws men before it the way madness only repels. Even now, travel-stained and half-healed, Robert made the great room feel his. Then Jon Arryn said, "There remains the matter of Princess Elia and the children." The hall changed. Robert's expression did not alter at once. "What matter?" Ned heard the lie in that. Robert knew there was a matter. He had known from the moment the raven reached him and had held his temper until now because witnesses were useful. "They are alive," Ned said. "Hey," Robert said. "I know what the raven said. I would know why." No one answered quickly enough for him. His gaze fell at last on Jaime in chains. "Because this gilded fool forgot his father's lessons?" Jaime smiled without warmth. "My father's lessons are less available than they once were." A few men shifted uneasily. Robert laughed once at that, ugly and short. "So I hear. Tywin taken by ditch knights and beggars. The gods have humor." "Nah." Kevan, who had been admitted only an hour before with a small escort, and now stood in plain blackened armor at the back of the hall, neither flinched nor spoke. He had bent the knee already in the yard and offered the West's swords, gold, and obedience. Robert had accepted because wounded kings with new crowns do not refuse Casterly Rock lightly, however much they may have dreamed of doing just that. Yet the acceptance sat provisional between them, waiting to see what the next argument made of it. Ned said, "Elia and the children were held in the keep. When the city fell, I took them under guard. No man harmed them." "Meh, Robert turned on him. "And now you ask what? That I thank you for sparing dragon whelps?" There it was. The lords around the hall looked everywhere but at the two old friends. Jon Arryn's face grew still. He had expected this and hoped perhaps that exhaustion would blunt it. Robert's hatreds were not so easily blunted. "They are children," Ned said. "They are Targaryens. A girl and a babe. A girl who could marry. A babe who could grow." Robert's voice rose. "Do you think I won this realm to leave seed in the ground for the next war? Rhaegar's son lives, and every man who loved dragons will have a banner to run to once I turn my back. He is an infant, and Rhaegar was an infant once." The words struck the hall like thrown stones. Ned felt a coldness settle in him deeper than battle. This was not surprise. He knew Robert's rage, knew how it had fed on Lyanna's loss until dragon blood became for him a single dark answer to grief. Yet, knowing a thing and hearing it spoken before a hall were different burdens. Jon Arryn stepped forward before either man could say what would end too much. "No one here disputes the danger, Your Grace. The question is how to answer danger without beginning your reign in child murder." Robert's jaw worked. Varys said mildly, "The realm is tired, Your Grace. Visible mercy may win where visible slaughter hardens enemies into martyrs." "Mercy?" Robert rounded on him. "Do not preach mercy at me, eunuch. Not for Rhaegar's brood." Kevan spoke then, and because he had not spoken at all until that moment, the hall listened. "If it please Your Grace, House Lannister has no wish to see more dead children in the capital." The sentence hung there, all the heavier for what Tywin might have wished had he lived. Robert looked at him with narrowed eyes. "No, that is a new song from the West. My brother sang more loudly than I do," Kevan said. "But I have heard enough of war." It was as close as the man would ever come to rebuking his dead brother in public. Ned marked it and filed it away. So did Jon. Robert laughed again, though there was less mirth in it. "The dead preach caution and brothers inherit conscience. Strange days." "They are strange days," Jon Arryn said carefully, "and they require settlement. Princess Elia is a Martell. Harm done openly to her and her children will not vanish into the walls. Dorne will remember. The realm may pardon one dead kin's madness more easily than one living kin's necessity." "And what then?" Robert demanded. "Do I seat the boy across from me at supper, give him a toy sword and wait for his beard?" "No," Jon said. "You keep them under guard. You decide later, when your crown sits firmer and the realm has bent. A child in hand is not a banner in the field." "Nay." Robert turned away and paced 2 steps down from the throne, then back. His wound made the movement uneven. Anger and pain sharpened each other in him. "Every day they live is a danger. Every day they die by your word is a stain," Ned said. Robert wheeled. "You think me butcher enough for it?" Ned held his gaze. "I think war teaches men to call ugly things necessary when what they mean is easy." The hall stopped breathing. For an instant, Ned thought Robert might strike him then and there. Instead, the king looked at him as if seeing not his old friend, but a stranger standing where friendship had once gone unquestioned. Perhaps Ned did the same. At the edge of the gathering, Jaime lowered his head and laughed soundlessly. Not at them, Ned realized after a beat. At the entire monstrous pageant of crowns and honor and dead children bargaining for breath. Elia was brought then, not by Robert's wish, but by Jon's insistence that no man decide the fate of a woman and her children, while speaking of them as if they were parcels on a table. She entered veiled in black and copper with Rhaenys beside her, and Aegon in a nurse's arms. Even Robert, for all his fury, held himself back from words fit only for private rage. The sight of living targets complicated him. Elia curtsied no lower than rank required. "Your Grace." Robert stared at Aegon a long moment, then at Rhaenys. The child met his look with solemn dislike. Ned almost smiled despite himself. Then Robert looked away first. "Take them back under guard," he said. Relief moved through the hall so faintly it was more a change in air than sound. Ned exhaled once. Robert rounded again on Jaime. "And him? What name do we give a Kingsguard who kills his king and climbs the throne before the blood dries?" Jaime lifted his eyes. "Whichever pleases you best." Arrogant still. "No," Jaime said. "Only tired." Robert considered him. "Chain him. He'll stand trial when I'm crowned and strong enough to hear lies without being bored by them." Jaime inclined his head in what might almost have been gratitude. Or perhaps it was merely acknowledgement that he had not been killed out of hand. When the hall at last began to empty, Robert remained above with Jon and Ned while the others drifted away to spread news, shape factions, and begin the labor of turning chaos into government. Kevan lingered long enough to renew his oath and ask, formally, leave to escort Tywin's body west for burial once the city's immediate business allowed. Robert granted it curtly. Gold mattered. So did the appearance of magnanimity toward a dead enemy made convenient by death. As Kevan turned to go, Ned caught his arm lightly. "The city lives because you kept your host out." Kevan looked at him with tired eyes. "Or because I lacked my brother's nerve." Ned released him. "I do not think so." "No?" Kevan's mouth bent in something too brief to be called a smile. "Perhaps that is the difference between us, Stark. You still believe a man may choose the good thing cleanly. I am old enough to know we usually choose only between different shames." He left before Ned could answer. That night, Robert took possession of the Red Keep, but not yet of peace. The city had been spared the green holocaust beneath its stones, and the red ruin of a full sack, yet every corridor still felt thick with what might have been. Servants scrubbed blood from throne room steps with sand and lye. Gold cloaks dragged pyromancer jars from cellars under armed watch. Septons chanted over the dead king while kitchen boys gaped at the sight. In Maegor's holdfast, Elia sat wakeful with her children and listened to foreign guards outside her door. In the lower chambers, Jaime Lannister stared through iron bars at torchlight and wondered whether saving a city would prove easier to live with than killing a king. Near midnight, Ned climbed alone to the battlements above the river. The wind off Blackwater Bay smelled of salt, smoke, and autumn coming on. Below, campfires of the rebel host in the west both pricked the dark fields. Somewhere in those far lights, men were already composing the false versions. In one, Robert would stride in and claim the throne over dead dragons gifted him by loyal lions. In another, Jaime would be a traitor pure and simple, his reasons filth. In another still, Tywin would remain a giant even in death, though his last command had never been given. The truth was untidier and therefore less safe. A city had been saved by a man without honor. Children lived because honor had not yet reached them. A realm had won a king whose first instinct toward peace was slaughter, and that king had nonetheless stayed his hand, if only for a night. Tywin Lannister had died in the mud before he could write the ending with blood, and all of Westeros would now have to live inside a different kind of uncertainty. Below him, the bells sounded once, twice, then fell quiet. At dawn the next morning, when the first true light touched the city roofs and made the Blackwater shine like beaten tin, the Iron Throne stood waiting in a hall that smelled faintly, still of wildfire under stone. The realm had been spared one ending. It had not yet been granted another.